Own Way, the podcast with me, your host, Kori McClurg.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Get Out of Your Own Way, the podcast. I'm Kori McClurg, author of Get Out of Your Own Way. So today I want to talk about connection. And what do I mean by that? So a lot of times we think about connection as in, like you're vibing with somebody, or maybe sometimes we think about connection with family, that, that having shared DNA, gives us connection to people. But also I want to talk a little bit about connection to self. Quite often I see that we can become disconnected to ourselves. And this happens in a variety of ways, but by and large, somehow we get the message that, we can't be trusted, and that we need to, seek somebody else's approval. We need to seek somebody else's direction. We generally just can't, that there's no benefit in knowing ourselves, or there's no benefit in listening to ourselves. And I think this is dangerous personally. There's a reason why we have like sayings like your gut instinct, right? And we have that. I think certainly whenever the phrase came about, perhaps we didn't understand the science, but now we do know. We know so much about how our gut and our brains are connected, and that you very much do receive information from other parts of your body, not just your brain. And that actually our brain is sometimes the last to know when things are going on. We know now that you'll have a feeling something like 7 seconds before the thought about the feeling even raises to your level of consciousness. And so this makes a ton of sense, right? Like in the presence of danger, we would have evolved such that our bodies are moving and reacting before our conscious brain can do anything about it. Like it would have happened that, the early humans that just reacted and didn't think about it and got themselves out of danger, they survived, right? So it makes sense that our conscious brain is the last to know. Also, it's also significant that, like our prefrontal cortex, that was the last, feature to come online, if you will. We had, you hear people talk about the reptilian brain, the amygdala, that was well, millions of years before we would have evolved to having our prefrontal cortex, which is what we think of as like our conscious part of our brain, our logical part of our brain. So that totally makes sense that our bodies are providing us with information, and our bodies are acting on information before the logical brain comes online in a particular situation. Of course, that makes sense. So why would we deny, right? All of that here it is, a couple millions of years of evolution, that we're going to say that we think we're so smart that we're going to deny that and say, oh no, that we shouldn't trust that. That's BS, I think. I mean, you're not going to tell me that a person who's been alive for 50 years and now thinks that they can out-logic this, these 2 million years and countless generations of people that have kept the species alive, that now, my 50-year-old self is somehow smarter than all these years of evolution and subsequent generations, right? That makes no sense. So absolutely, we should be trusting our instincts to get ourselves out of danger, right? To know what is right, to know what's deepest in us. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about connection and this disconnection that I see so many of us walking around with, that we think we can't be trusted. We think that there's something just fundamentally wrong with us, because, we think there's something fundamentally wrong with us because there's a guy at church that creeps us out, or we're, so uncomfortable at, large events, or certain family gatherings just give us tons of anxiety. Like, all of those have reasons to them, and should not be ignored. We shouldn't talk ourselves out of, like, oh, Jimbo at church, he creeps me out, but, he goes to church every week, so I'm sure it's fine. No, it's not fine. Like, you absolutely should be digging in to yourself and trying to understand that. Like, and sometimes there's nothing to understand. Like, Jimbo creeps me out and I just don't want to be around Jimbo. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, I would say there's everything right with that, because when you do that, when you respect yourself enough to say, I don't like being around Jimbo. He, gives me really bad vibes. I don't like how I feel around him. I don't like, the way he makes jokes, whatever. Absolutely respect yourself enough. Because this is the other important part, right? Like, when you're not giving yourself enough respect to validate your own senses, to acknowledge, see what you're seeing, acknowledge what you're seeing. When you can't give yourself that respect, other people won't either, right? Other people will think that, oh, it's okay to override you. It's okay to override your opinion. It's okay to, that your needs don't matter. Sometimes, do you want to sit there and try to figure out, why Jimbo creeps you out? It may very well be worthwhile, because if you don't see, if you can't articulate for yourself the reasons why Jimbo creeps you out, then it very well could be like an underlying unconscious trigger from the past. And so that could be really helpful thing to understand. It could be that Jimbo really doesn't have very good intentions, and your gut, right? You're part of your brain and your body that aren't working on a totally conscious level. They know that Jimbo is up to bad stuff. And so it's trying to keep you safe, right? Respect the fact that your brain and your body have been doing nothing but trying to keep you safe, and that's not just physical safety. That is also psychological safety. So many times we dismiss that. You also have to have psychological safety. I assume that you've heard, the research that we know, for example, that a baby that is never touched will die, even though kept safe in any other way, and all their other, needs for food, water, air, right, are all met, nutrition, everything else the baby's getting. If they're not touched, they will die. So that doesn't have anything to do with physical safety. That is a psychological safety. So stop ignoring the fact that your psyche, your body are trying to keep you in psychological safety and physical safety. So trust it, respect it, establish that connection with yourself that you respect. The you that's way down in there, the real you, is trying to keep you safe. Once you can establish that connection and continue to foster that connection, I think there's also this worthwhile conversation about connection to others, right? Having this connection to others who also respect you and your connection to self, like continue to foster that feeling of connectedness. And why is this important? It's important because when we are trying to have this happy, long life, that's a part of it, right? Is having that just sense of safety and well-being, and having these connections, which we would have been driven to, again, over the course of our evolution, as a means of both psychological and physical safety. So you're driven to it. And I would contend it's only due to the modern environment that we've been cutting ourselves off from both. We've been cutting ourselves off from connection to self because we think that we're going to out-logic our own intuition. And then we have, even more recently began to disconnect ourselves from other people because we think that, that we establish connection through our device. And instead of getting connection through real life interaction. One more thing I want to add fuel to the fire, that all of these, like when you read these case reports and the research about what people say on their deathbeds, right? It's not that, oh, I wish I had achieved one more thing, or I wish I would have, made a little more money. Nobody says that. They all say a couple things. One, I wish I would have been myself, right? I wish I wasn't afraid to be myself. And they say, I wish I had better relationships. I wish I was more connected to the people around me. And those are two overriding ideas as people are dying, right? And ultimately, isn't that what we want, right? We want to be able to be at the end of our lives and feel like, this was great. This was so great. And I feel like I had all the love and I had all the experience, and so it feels okay, right, to go. I think that's ultimately what we want. And it all comes back to this idea of connection to self and connection to others. So stop denying yourself. Stop denying that you have these feelings that sometimes that come from places you don't necessarily understand, and that's okay. Just get curious about it. Establish that connection with yourself to try to continue to embrace it, to evolve it, to listen more, right? That's a lot of connection, is just listening. Don't stop telling yourself that, you're bad for wanting something, you're bad for thinking something, that, you can't be trusted. I think we have a deep knowing if we just listen. So that's connection. It is important, and we'll continue to talk about it. We'll see you next time.